What it do? What it is? Welcome back, y'all. Uncomfy Truths, episode 22. It is March 30th of 2024. A lot going on. I'm glad you guys are back here with us. We are building slowly but surely. We got a lot of things to talk about today. A lot of big events. Really, we may not have as many articles or topics to switch back and forth to, but definitely a lot to expound upon. So I'm excited and glad you guys are back here. Conspiracy brother, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing
Yeah,
great.
yeah, a lot going
Glad to be
on,
here as always.
Yeah. Just a little quick housekeeping. We're currently fully on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. Those guys been listening for a minute. We were kind of just on Rumble for the. We started out just on Rumble, to be honest with you. We since tiptoed into YouTube and now Odyssey. Now our whole Odyssey has our entire backlog, so we're all caught up there. So yeah, just definitely excited for what we got going on and talking about. We're gonna have a new. Well, we pretty much have about the same crawl, the little text crawl at the bottom. But pretty soon we want to eventually have an uncomfy truths gifts and go set up. We don't trust GoFundMe, but get more of that together. So those guys want to contribute to the show. to see more episodes like this, that is more than welcome. But yeah, we can go ahead and anything conspiracy brother you want to touch on, before I throw out the first topic, or just anything you want to get off your chest, So it's been a big week, been a very revealing week.
Uh, well, there has been a lot of stuff going on, and so I think there are a couple different angles that I want us to try to address some of that stuff. Is my sound all right?
Yeah, you good. You
I
good?
just wanted to make sure before I really got into it, but I think there are a couple things we're going to need to just get into detail with, because there has been a lot of things going on this week. There's a lot of different angles to try to hit. We just will never know. We may never know what's at the bottom of it all. We may never know, who's controlling what, or, what the intentions of these people are, or organizations, but just trying to, piece out what is happening and how it fits into the greater plan for whoever's in control is important. I am conspiracy brother, so I'm always trying to figure out what's underneath it all. And so,
Yep.
I think today's show will be no different.
Yep, it's about to get ugly. We're about to lift over these rocks. We're gonna have all types of worms and snakes and all types of, we don't know what's underneath, but we gotta flip the rock over regardless. So I'll kick off the first article. Obviously, if you haven't been living under a rock, literally, you should know by now about the development in Baltimore, the Baltimore Bridge. I believe it's called the Francis Key Scott Bridge in
Francis
Baltimore.
Scott Key Bridge. It's
Francis
named
Scott.
after the man who wrote the national anthem.
Oh, word.
Francis
Okay.
Scott Key, yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm not that familiar with Baltimore outside of, one of the best shows, The Wire, great HBO show, but that was a long time ago. All right, so this comes from the local news channel WBAL TV 11. Baltimore bridge collapse. Cranes removing wreckage of key bridge. 4 unaccounted for. Officials suspend vessel traffic in port of Baltimore after bridge collapse. This comes from Greg Nigg, Josh Starkley, and Blair Young over at WBAL TV. Cranes continue to remove the wreckage for the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge Saturday as Governor Wes Moore and several Maryland officials provided updated a press conference. All right, so Governor Moore says the massive crane, which can lift up to 1,000 tons, is one of at least 2 used to clear the channel of the twisted metal and concrete remains of the fallen bridge and the cargo ship that collided with it this week. The best minds in the world are working on the plans for removal, Moore said. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for the Baltimore district told the governor that it and the Army and the Navy were mobilizing major resources around the country at record speed to clear the channel. The U.S. Navy will supply 4 heavy lift cranes, while 10 tugs, 9 barges, 8 salvage vessels, and 5 Coast Guard boats also joined the effort. He warned of a long road to recovery, but he was grateful to the Biden administration for approving $60 million in immediate aid. All right, let's keep that in mind. President Joe Biden has said the federal government will pay the full cost of rebuilding the bridge. All right, so let's definitely come back to that. I got some things on that. The latest right now, cranes arrived overnight in Baltimore and began the long process of removing the debris of the fallen bridge and cargo ship. 4 missing workers are still unaccounted for. Coast Guard officials say all 4 are presumed dead following Tuesday's collapse. The bodies of 35-year-old Alejandro Hernandez Fuentes and 26-year-old Dorlian Renil Castillo were recovered from a red pickup submerged in about 25 feet of water. The focus now turns to investigating what happened and reopening the channel as quickly and safely as possible. President Joe Biden approved $60 million in funding for recovery efforts. Preliminary investigation shows this was not intentional. All right, so we're gonna I know we're gonna deep dive on that conspiracy, brother, because that's the mainstream narrative headline. And don't you look into it beyond that. All right, Baltimore Beltway, I-90, I-695 closed from Glen Burnie to Dundalk. Those are guys that are Baltimore natives. The iconic Baltimore Bridge collapsed around 1:30 Tuesday when the container ship Dolly slammed into the pillar, causing a long span of the bridge to crumple into the Patapsco River. At least 8 people went into the water. I think it's a little more than that. I'm pretty sure there were at least maybe more than 8 cars. I know they said 1:30 in the morning, but I'm just still not that sold on just 8 people. 2 were rescued. The other 6, part of the construction crew who had been filling in potholes on the bridge, were missing and presumed dead. God damn. The search for the missing changed from a search and rescue mission to a recovery mission late Tuesday night, 18 hours after the workers disappeared. Based on the length of time that we've gone in the search, the extensive search efforts we put into it, the water temperature, we do not believe that we are going to find any of these individuals alive. And so this evening around 7:30, we're going to suspend active search and rescue efforts. U.S. Coast Guard Rear Admiral Shannon Gilchrist said Tuesday. The search for the missing turned into a salvage operation Wednesday, as officials said the bridge's superstructure is blocking diver access to the remaining victims. We have exhausted all search efforts in the areas around this wreckage. And based on the sonar scans, we firmly believe the remaining vehicles are encased in the superstructure and concrete that we tragically saw come down. Maryland State Police Colonel Ronald Butler Jr. James Jesus Campos, who has worked on the bridge for Bronner Builders and knows the members of the construction crew who died, said he was told they were on break and some were sitting in their trucks to warm up when the bridge collapsed. What happens next? Governor Wes Moore submitted an emergency $60 million request for funding from the federal government. He announced Thursday evening that request was approved. We want to be clear, $60 million is just a down payment, not the final payment, U.S. Department Transportation official Shaylin Bott said. First, crews will clear debris from the channel, then remove the cargo ship before removing the rest of the bridge debris from the water. Cranes are on the way to do that. One will arrive Friday, another on Saturday. Efforts so far have largely focused on the search for the missing workers, but the focus will soon shift to 2 main objectives: investigating what happened and reopening the channel as quickly and as safely as possible. National Transportation Safety Board Chair Jennifer Hamendi said investigators boarded the vessel and obtained a general timeline of events via the ship's recorder data. At 1:24 a.m. Tuesday, numerous alarms went off on the bridge and the VDR stopped. 2 minutes later, it started again. That's when the pilots put out the first call for tugboats to assist. At 1:27, the pilot of the ship ordered the port anchor to drop and radioed the ship lost power and was approaching the bridge. That's when the U.S. Coast Guard instructed MDTA to shut down the bridge and all lanes were closed. The VDR recorded collision about 2 minutes later. All right, so that's good information. No, they at least got the warning and told to shut down the lanes before the initial collapse. So it would explain the lack of cars. Officials have determined the ship has 56 containers containing 764 tons of hazardous materials that federal agencies are working to address. Some of the hazmat containers were breached. We have seen sheen on the waterway, but according to Moore, there's no indication of any serious threat at this time. Officials said that a preliminary report should be released by the NTSB in 2 to 4 weeks, with the report not expected for 12 to 24 months. Ship underwent engine maintenance before the crash. The ship that crashed into the bridge in Baltimore was undergoing routine engine maintenance in the port beforehand, the Coast Guard said. The U.S. Coast Guard Rear Admiral Shannon Gilreath said at a news conference on Wednesday that authorities have been informed that the ship was going to undergo routine engine maintenance before it lost power. But he said authorities were not informed of any problems. Officials said the National Safety Board said the cargo ship was carrying hazardous materials. NTSB Chair Jennifer Hamidi said there are 56 containers aboard containing hazardous materials, including corrosives, flammables, and lithium-ion batteries. She said some of the containers were breached and sheen there. In the sheen, there was a sheen in the water. And a sheen, there was sheen. Okay, that must be a typo. That will be dealt with by authorities. She said the voyage data recorder has been recovered. Mindy said the investigation should take 12 to 24 months, but that NTSB would not hesitate to issue urgent safety recommendations during that time. She said a preliminary report should be released in 2 to 4 weeks. It's a massive undertaking for an investigation. Mindy said it's a very tragic event. All right, it's a long article. I'm gonna read the rest of this, but conspiracy brother, I would like to get your initial thoughts. A lot to unpack here. Um, a lot
Yeah.
to
So the most recent thing that you brought up is the hazardous material located on the ships. And so it just reminds me of a lot of these industrial disasters, would you call it, that we've seen, East Palestine, the one that happened in Michigan,
Mhm.
the train derailment, the other one, I forget where they had those hazardous chemicals. And so, that especially, I know they talked about it a lot with East Palestine, but
Right.
the water was uh, had a sheen to it. You couldn't drink it, even though they were telling people that it was safe to drink. It was flammable, had an odor, was killing plants. So you know, um, maybe transportation, industrial transportation in this country is overwhelmingly filled with hazardous materials. Maybe the daily life of an American citizen is just um, a constant exposure to hazardous materials that we just don't consider hazardous because they're you know commonly used. So like lithium ion batteries or whatever, we are all around that with our phones and things like that. So maybe we don't really consider that a hazard.
Mhm.
But it is interesting that these things keep happening in our water sources. Um, it isn't a coincidence, how I feel about that these
Mhm.
things are happening, but it is interesting that these things are happening. So, I would like to know what the long term effects of this type of contamination is, right? What
Mhm.
is the effect on the ecosystem and how will that affect the actual people who work and live in that community? I lived in Alexandria for about a year and a half. I didn't go to Baltimore a lot, so I don't know if I've ever driven on this bridge or anything. Um, I have been to Chesapeake Bay area. I don't think this is near that, but I'm just saying I've been to Baltimore a couple times, but I didn't go frequently. It's still a bit of a journey from, like southern DC, Northern Virginia. Um, but there are a lot of bridges in that area, and every bridge there is important. You know,
Mhm.
if any of those bridges um, are out of commission, it is going to cause a significant problem for the tri-state, or however you want to look at tri-city. I say tri-state because DMV uh, area. Um, so I'll let you keep reading because I don't want to say something that you might address later.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll let you keep going. Maybe you have some more articles about this specific topic. So I'll let you just keep going, and I'll just interject.
Yeah, it's a very detailed
you
breakdown. That's why I usually like the more local news channel. Once again, this is pretty long for a local, but at the same time, they're more on the ground. They kind of got the specifics. So this is only from like 4 or 5 hours ago. So, Port of Baltimore operations. The Maryland Port Administration suspended vessel traffic into and out of the Port of Baltimore until further notice. The port is not shut down, and they are still processing trucks inside of the terminals. Starting Wednesday, the Newville Street Gate will close until further notice. All truck traffic must enter through the Seagirt main gate at 2600 Browing Highway. The Seagirt main gate will not be extended to 5:30 on Thursday as previously scheduled. It will close at normal time of 4:30. The Seagirt Marine Terminal will be closed on Good Friday. No indications of terrorism. All right, so here we go. Control the narrative. No indications of terrorism. Baltimore Police Commissioner Richards said there is no intelligence or any indication that the incident was intentional. And you could tell by that quote, conspiracy brother, that's like the way he said it. You could just tell, like, there is no intelligence or any indication that the incident was intentional. The FBI released the following statement saying there is no specific or credible information to suggest any ties to terrorism at this time. The investigation is ongoing. FBI Baltimore will continue to support our partners at the local, state, and federal levels. All right. The ship underwent 27.
let me just interject.
Yeah.
So I mean, like you're saying with the whole narrative control, if so, there was articles written about how the U.S. funded ISIS, for example, right? Or Al Nusra, or what is the moderate rebels Obama called them, right? Al Qaeda, the Mujahideen, whatever, right? And so in Syria, it is known, was articles written about it. I was watching Jimmy Dore and he was talking about it, so it kind of reminded me. Well, there were articles written about how the FBI, sorry, not the FBI, the CIA was funding one set of group or rebel groups in Syria, and the Pentagon was funding another group. And sometimes they would fight each other, like unknowingly, because the Pentagon does a lot of things without direct oversight of any congressional body or the president, which is why they're so dangerous, and also why it's so hard to pin down what they're doing specifically and have any control over them. And so you had two government agencies using U.S. taxpayer money. And if not U.S. taxpayer money, why are we having to pay taxes? But you have two government agencies using U.S. taxpayer money to fund opposing rebel terrorist groups to fight each other, who are unknowingly fighting each other. And so, like in 1984, they Orwell talks about that in Oceania, how the two other main groups, authorities, countries, alliances, East Asia and Eurasia,
Lanier by Nomad devices uses
the
dual mode stimulation.
alliance that Oceania has with East Asia and Eurasia can change at any moment, and then all the history of the interactions has to change as a result. So you've been at war with East Asia for 10 years, let's say, and then all of a sudden you'll be at war with Eurasia, and East Asia will be your allies. So you got to change all the media and books and memories, essentially, of everybody to get them to the consensus that, you know, our new enemy is this person. And there are a lot of proxy countries all over the globe who actually do a lot of the fighting. It's not the major power, so it's not East Asia against Eurasia or Oceania against one. It'll be an Oceanian proxy against an East Asian proxy, or vice versa. And it's illustrated as arrows on like a map on a TV screen. And so you'll see the fighting represented by differently colored arrows, like we see today with, you know, for example, the war in Ukraine. And one of the things that I thought about when I was reading it is just that you will never know, right? You don't even know if there is actually a war taking place on the map in the real world, or if this is just what the media is telling the people who live in the various states as a justification for war, right? Because, you know, as I've talked about in previous episodes, the need for war in Oceania from Big Brother existed not because of a need for conquest or power outside of the confines of the country itself, but because what it did was it occupied the minds and bodies of the proletariat and even lower party members, right? It gave the inner party an opportunity to distract all of the people who are unimportant, because society had progressed to a point where you didn't need to work, because, you know, technology, computers, farming, whatever, these advancements had gotten so much to the point that, you know, it had transcended all the need for all that stuff. So you had people who didn't have a purpose anymore. They lived a life that was aimless. They couldn't be, and you know, we see a lot of that being replicated today, where you create a world of AI, of robotics, which is going to completely render vast majorities of not only America but the world obsolete, the people. And so, you know, you look at this, and it says, you know, we have no signs of terrorism. But, for example, if the U.S. government is behind this in any way, they would not tell you it was a terrorist act. If this were a terrorist act and the U.S. government allowed it to slip through the cracks,
right? Like they're going to tell you, like they're going to tell us.
Tell you either. Right. And so you're in a situation where you either have to believe that there was no terrorist attack and the government is telling you the truth right now, or that there was and we're all unsafe and the government is lying to you. You know, there's not really a three ways to look at that situation. And given the history of this country and the way that they do things, I'm more inclined to believe that they're lying and they had a hand in it, because, you know, we have a history of doing these types of, I don't know what we call them, false flags or psyops or whatever you call them. It's just in our nature as a country for us to do this to ourselves. So that's, you know, my 2 cents.
Bet, because I mean, at this point, there's like so many sort of factors you can kind of. Sometimes we can't over catastrophize the event, but at the same time, I got questions. I know they're gonna do their investigation, but how can you hit one of those pillars so perfectly it just collapses the whole bridge? I mean, I'm not an engineer or anything, and I'm sure there's maybe blueprints or schematics that can kind of justify it, but these are questions that should be asked, and this kind of reminds me of once again. I think there was I think it was Marjorie Taylor Greene. Once again, I don't rock with a lot of her politics. I'm with her about kind of the, you know, I'm with her on some things, but a lot of stuff I don't rock with on that far right side. But I do respect her willingness to say, "Hey, we need to ask questions. We need to." And then, like, I think for whatever reason, the guy I mentioned the Wire earlier, the guy that created the Wire, David Simon, it was just like name called her, like, "How dare you?" Blah blah blah. You're just a douchebag. Just for asking questions. So we're starting to see once again that same demonization, that same sort of how dare you question authority? They said it was this and it was that, where you can't even question certain things. All right. It doesn't, you're not killing anybody asking a question, you know? So, I can get on that a little bit more, but I'm just
Well,
still iffy about how many people actually died or what the circumstances were. It could be part cyber attack. It could be part terrorist attack. We just don't really know. We don't have all the info. But at the same time, uncomfy truths, we don't leave any stone unturned. So let's get through the rest of this article. The
well,
ship
well,
underwent
I just
27. Oh, yeah. What's that?
I want to say, since you brought up the whole way the bridge collapsed, that's
Mhm.
probably one of the biggest um, head scratchers for me,
Right.
because I know the bridge. They say the bridge is really old. I don't know if it's. I think it. I don't know if it's that old. I'm not, but I just can't see that it is a design feature of a bridge to completely collapse when one piece of it is compromised. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because of
exactly. Some off.
when you look
There's
at
some off.
you look at the time that the bridge collapsed, right? So it was, nobody was on it relatively. And let's say this had been in the middle of the day. And this is kind of why, when you really think about it, like, it doesn't make sense for this to have been a terrorist attack external to the country, because it would seem like the kind of thing that would occur in a time that would maximize the loss of life. And 1:30 in the morning or whenever you said it happened just doesn't seem like it fits the bill, you know? Um,
Yeah, but I did read an article. They apparently got a heads up about the ship's issues and heading toward the bridge.
well, yeah,
Well, apparently
that's what
they
they said.
closed the lanes right before, but I don't know. It explains that they closed the lanes, but
Well,
now,
yeah, but
you know,
they said that the ship it had some kind of mechanical issues. They called a mayday. But like I'm saying, even still, if a ship is traveling up and all of a sudden, I mean, the steering or whatever the control mechanisms are fail, it would be more disastrous, I'm assuming, at 5 o'clock or 10 o'clock than it would at 1:30. You know what I'm saying?
mhm.
AM. 5 p.m., 6 p.m. rush hour. I don't know. I'll let you keep going, but like I said, it just structurally that doesn't make sense that you would have, and like you said, I'm not an engineer. Maybe if you know any engineers who listen
Mhm.
or have any expertise in this,
I
but
might
that
know
just
one or
doesn't seem
two.
like a design
Mhm.
component that you would have a bridge that would be completely compromised if you damaged one post, one pillar. That does, I don't know.
Yeah, it just doesn't. Two and two's not adding up. Yeah, so I think we're both on the same page. And sometimes, like, we just live in this society, so we're so quick to maybe we're conditioned to dismiss our gut instinct. You know, so it's good to ask these questions because something about that bridge just falling apart, giving me like 9/11 inside job, padding the floor with explosives vibes. Because it just looks like an explosion. Looks like literally they imploded a bridge when that ship hit that one spot. So It's either years of neglect. I mean, we're gonna maybe see something come out. It's gonna be an investigation into what was the maintenance of the bridge over the years. What was the foundation of the bridge? Was it like neglected for years? Was it not retrofitted like it was supposed to 5, 10 years ago? Who in the city of Baltimore, instead of putting money toward revamping the bridge, maybe there have been requests about it. Maybe they were skimping money for themselves and taking that money somewhere else. So that could be a possible factor, So we just don't know. All right, so finishing this long as hell article, the ship underwent 27 inspections since the Dolly came into service in 2016. There were no issues until June when Chilean authorities found deficiencies in propulsion and all auxiliary machinery. The cargo ship they're talking about. DHS said the Dolly lost propulsion as it left Baltimore Harbor, which makes the June inspection particularly interesting. State of emergency. God damn, it's a long article. All right. You want to read some of this conspiracy, brother? I think it's still good information, but if you want to read some of it.
Yeah, sure.
Let me scroll back up. Hold on. Yeah, this article is like the most recent one. So, all right. State of emergency.
Was that
So,
Lester
Linear
Holt?
binaural devices uses dual
Lester
mode
Holt.
stimulation
Okay.
to soothe tinnitus. Linear combines sound stimulation and multi-pattern tone pulses to activate hearing and sensory
I don't know
pathways.
where that's coming from.
This
Hold on.
dual mode approach
Mhm.
weakens tinnitus pathways and helps the brain to stop focusing on tinnitus sounds, which can dramatically reduce the impact tinnitus has on a person's overall quality of life.
Sorry, hold on.
Linear soothes tinnitus.
Technical difficulties.
On scene at 6 a.m. To investigate an accident involving a Singapore registered.
There it is. All right. Okay, here we go. All right, state of emergency. Yeah.
The governor's office released a statement saying, quote, "My office is in close communications with U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott, Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski, and the Baltimore Fire Department as emergency personnel are on the scene following the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Quote, I have declared a state of emergency here in Maryland, and we are working with an interagency team to quickly deploy federal resources from the Biden administration.
Yep.
So no end quote there, but it's going to continue a quote. That's so weird when you see it written that way, that you have a quote to start, no end quote, but then you have a new quote to start the next sentence.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We see that a lot too in these articles.
Just bad grammar.
It just goes to show you how poorly a lot of this stuff is written. And I don't know if it's just people are overworked. I don't know if it's an over reliance on like spell check and stuff.
You gotta get it together.
Man, this, geez.
Spell check, motherfuckers.
Spell and grammar check. Quote,
Right.
We are thankful for the brave men and women who are carrying out efforts to rescue those involved and pray for everyone's safety, end quote. Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott, no relation, no, just kidding. It's the Scott Key, issued an executive order declaring a state of emergency in Baltimore City in response to the collapse starting at 9 a.m. and will remain in place for 30 days, which enables the mobilization of emergency services and resources. Well, here's Lester Holt. Quote, see, I didn't see another end quote, right? Am I imagining things?
Yeah.
Quote, this is an unthinkable tragedy, end quote. Scott said in a news conference on Tuesday morning, quote, this is a tragedy you can never imagine. Never did you think you would see the Key Bridge tumble down like that. It looked like something out of a movie. Our focus should be the preservation of life, end quote. That sounds like a weird thing to say. Never did you think you would see the Key Bridge? Like, I mean, you could. That's weird. That sounds like something somebody wrote, but not something you would
Yeah, like
say
its
in the
own script.
spur of
Like
the
this is
moment.
the Operation Mockingbird script being sent
Never in your
down.
life.
Yeah.
You know, it's like saying, never in your life would you think somebody would assassinate John F. Kennedy. Like, what? I mean, no, you wouldn't think that. You would never assume that. But that way of phrasing it seems so insincere. The Key Bridge, like any bridge, any president, you know, any mass, anything, you wouldn't think a spaceship would blow up, but the Challenger blew up. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just
Right.
the phrasing don't seem organic. It seems like something, you know, again, I'm a conspiracy brother, so maybe I see things where there things aren't. But that just seems like such a weird. And then the mayor, he told people he'd like them to stop looking at the video online. Like, you know, it's weird.
Yeah.
And quote, we all awoke this morning to an unspeakable tragedy, end quote. Baltimore County Executive Johnny O said at a news conference early Tuesday morning. And see, look, no, also I missed the end quote. Quote, we have a long road ahead, not just in the search and rescue, but in the fallout after this, end quote. Alternate routes. Interstate 695 is closed between Maryland Route 157, Peninsula Expressway, and Dundalk and Maryland Route 10, Arundel Expressway in Glen Burnie. Interstate 95, Fort McHenry Tunnel, maximum height 14 feet 6 inches, maximum width 11 feet. Interstate 895, Baltimore Harbor Tunnel, maximum height 13 feet 6 inches, maximum width 8 feet. Vehicles transporting hazardous materials, including propane or more than 10 pounds, are prohibited in tunnels and should use the western section of I-695 around tunnels. Biden federal government will pay to rebuild. President Joe Biden spoke on the bridge collapse Tuesday afternoon, saying the federal government will send all the resources needed by the city and state. Quote, we're with you. I'm going to stay with you for long. No, we're going to stay with you for as long as it takes. Like the Ukrainians. Wow, you get the Ukraine treatment. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe you could upgrade to the Israel treatment.
Yep.
But you're still just at the Ukraine level right now, Baltimore.
Like
the government said, you're Maryland tough. Like the governor said, you're Maryland tough. You're Baltimore strong, and we're going to get through this together. And I promise we're not leaving.
Hey, I got to interject. There go that line again. We're get through this together. We're all in this together. You know this quote. People say they always quote Obama. I think this quote was around way before Obama. Never let a good crisis go to waste. So we talked about this. Remember, there's events like this. We have to think about who does this benefit? All right. Who's I think there's like three questions. I know the big one's like who does this benefit? Because every crisis, you never let a good crisis go to waste. I want to kind of point that out. There's $60 million in federal funding. Where all is exactly going? Is it all going to go toward exactly what's needed to clean up the river? You know, I'm just throwing that back out there. But yeah, conspiracy brother, continue.
Well, I mean, you know, the fact that he says, what do you say? Trust me, whatever. That's how you know it's bull. You know, it's bull
Yeah.
because anytime Biden says, "Trust me, I'm sticking with you," unless there's some way that Raytheon and what's the other
Boeing, Lockheed Martin.
right? Unless there's some way for them to get some money out of this, there's no way that you're going to get the same kind of effort and attention that, for example, Ukraine or Israel's getting. But the president called on Congress to put into motion federal government paying for the construction of a replacement bridge. Quote, it's my intention that the federal government will pay for the entire cost to reconstruct the bridge, end quote, Biden said. Buttigieg said the president's plan is to rebuild the bridge and reopen the port. He said the administration is prepared to approve emergency funding upon request from the state. The Federal Highway Administration released a statement saying, quote, the I-695 corridor is a vital connection for people and goods traveling along the East Coast. And we stand ready to offer technical assistance, including emergency relief funding, to help manage traffic and rebuild the bridge as quickly and safely as possible. Quote, in response to the collapse, the U.S. Department of Transportation and Federal Highway Administration have been actively coordinating with federal, state, and local officials in the region, including the Maryland Department of Transportation, the Maryland Transportation Authority, the City of Baltimore, U.S. Coast Guard, NTSB, and others. This is a long article.
Yeah.
Quote,
That might be our longest article yet.
Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Federal Highway Administrator Shailene Bott, and the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, are on site today to offer federal support and assistance, end quote. What's next? The collapse is sure to create a logistical nightmare for months, if not years, along the East Coast, shutting down ship traffic at the Port of Baltimore, a major shipping hub. The accident will also snarl cargo and commuter traffic. Quote, losing this bridge will devastate the entire area, as well as the entire East Coast, end quote, Maryland State Senator Johnny Ray Saling said. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, speaking at a news conference near the site Tuesday, said it was too soon to estimate how long it will take to clear the channel, which is about 50 feet deep. Let's see. This is no ordinary bridge. Quote, this is no ordinary bridge. This is one of the cathedrals of American infrastructure, end quote, he said at a news conference in Baltimore on Tuesday afternoon. Quote, it has been part of the skyline for this region longer than many of us have been alive, end quote. Because I heard it was like 50 years old, which, I mean, doesn't seem that old. But again, you know, if it's that significant, this is all it took to take it down. You know, highway signs as far south as Virginia are warning drivers of delays associated with the closure of the bridge. Quote, aside from the obvious tragedy, this incident will have significant and long-lasting impacts on the region, end quote. American Trucking Association spokesperson Jessica Gale said, calling Key Bridge and Baltimore's port, quote, critical components, end quote, of the nation's infrastructure. Gale noted that 1.3 million trucks cross the bridge every year, about 3,600 a day. Trucks that carry hazardous materials will now have to make 30 miles of detours around Baltimore because they are prohibited from using the city's tunnels, she said, adding to delays and increasing fuel costs. Where is the bridge? The Key Bridge opened in 1977, so yeah, it was like 52 years old. The Baltimore Beltway's circumference around the city. The bridge is southeast of the city proper and spans from Sparrows Point to the southernmost tip of Baltimore. According to a Maryland Transportation Authority report, issued in November, the Key Bridge carried more than 12.4 million commercial passengers vehicles in 2023. Federal Highway Administration records show the bridge was last inspected in May 2021 when inspectors rated it in fair condition. Overall, it had a rating of 6, satisfactory, out of 9 or on 3 parameters. These inspections are supposed to occur every 24 months. So it's a little late. The Key Bridge was indeed last inspected in May 2023 and, quote, found to be in satisfactory condition with an overall rating of fair, end quote, per a press aide for the U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. That inspection found the bridge was in fair condition as well.
Pete Booty.
How to donate. Pete
Hold on.
Buttigieg.
We don't need to read this. I mean, you want to read that part, but
I mean, we can read the preliminary timeline. Let's see.
Yeah, like
go down a bit. Let's see. More, go down more.
Let me zoom in more.
The container ship Dolly crashed into crashed into Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge shortly before 1:30 a.m. on March 26th, 2024, causing the 47. So 47, but it said it opened in 77, and it's. I guess that's right. I guess I'm wrong. I can't count. Yeah. Wait. This is 77 or 72. It doesn't matter. Into the Patapsco River. Maryland Transportation Authority police officers were able to close the bridge to traffic in the seconds before impact. How do you close a bridge seconds before impact?
Right. We're able to close the bridge to traffic.
After everybody was on
it. Right. Close it off so they can't get off. Fuck.
I turned my car off right before I crashed.
Oh,
okay.
Man.
You crashed already.
My God.
The video showed 2 vehicles crossing the bridge within 30 seconds of the bridge's collapse. So that means it didn't close fast enough. Crews rescued. I'm not laughing at the situation, but I'm laughing at the way the news tried to present it. Crews rescued 2 people, but 6 members of a construction crew working on the bridge were unable to get to safety. And after a lengthy search and rescue effort, our presumed dead Coast Guard officials say. Crews recovered 2 men's bodies from a pickup truck found under about 25 feet of water. They were identified by Maryland State Police as Alejandro Hernandez Fuentes, 35, of Baltimore, and Darwin Ronial Castillo Cabrera, 25, of Dundalk. Officials moved to a, quote, salvage, end quote, operation, as divers believe the other victims were trapped beneath debris that includes the bridge's superstructure and concrete. The 1.6-mile Francis Scott Key Bridge opened in March of 77 as the final link of the Baltimore Beltway Interstate 695 crossing over the Patapsco River and connecting Sparrows Point to the southernmost tip of Baltimore. It was a 4-lane bridge with a vertical clearance of 185 feet, according to an MDTA report issued in November. The Key Bridge carried more than 12.4 million commercial and passenger vehicles in 2023. The Down Bridge blocks access to the Port of Baltimore. The Down Bridge blocks access to the Port of Baltimore is one of the busiest. What?
Busiest port, American ports.
But I'm saying it says the Down Bridge blocks access to the Port of Baltimore is the. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, which is. Yeah, it should be a
right.
Yeah.
Handling some 2 million tons of cargo, 52 million, sorry, that contributes to $80 million in U.S. trade. It's the port in the country for cars and light trucks.
And this is like the longest article I've ever read in my life. But this is it. When we read this last one, or you got it? So
Sure,
this is it.
you can read it. You can read it.
All right, so we're at the end of this, the longest article in Uncomfy Truth's history. I'll at least say that. All right, so end of the timeline. NTSB preliminary data recording timeline. The National Transportation Safety Board released preliminary information from 6 hours of recordings from a voice data recorder on the vessel. The working timeline follows the ship's outbound through the Fort McHenry channel of the striking of the Key Bridge, 12:39 a.m. The Dolly departed from the Seagirt Marine Terminal in Baltimore. Ship entered 107. Ship entered Fort McHenry Channel. 1:24 a.m. The ship was underway at a speed of approximately 8 knots. 1:24:59 a.m. Numerous audible alarms were recorded on the ship's bridge audio. At about the same time, VDR sensor data ceased recording. However, VHR, I won't say VHS, VDR audio data continued to record using a redundant power source. 1:26 a.m. VDR assumed recording sensor data. During this time, steering commands and rudder orders were ordered on the audio. 1:26 a.m. The ship's pilot made a VHF radio call for tugs in the vicinity to assist. About this time, the Pilots Association dispatcher called the MDTA duty officer regarding a blackout on the ship. 1:27 a.m. The pilot ordered the Dolly to drop anchor and ordered additional steering commands. 1:27 a.m. The pilot issued a VHF radio call reporting that the Dolly had lost all power and was approaching the bridge. Around this time, MDTA showed the following had also occurred. The duty officer radioed to units stationed at each side of the bridge for the construction activity, ordered them to close traffic on the bridge. All lanes were then shut down by MDTA police officers. 1:29 a.m. The ship speed was recorded at just under 7 knots. From this time to approximately 1:29 a.m., the VDR audio recorded sound consistent with the collision into the bridge. Additionally, around this time, NDTA dash cams showed the bridge lights going out. Additional analysis will need to be done to determine the exact time when the Dolly collided with the bridge. I think we all knew when that was. The 1:29 a.m., the pilot reported the bridge down over the VHF radio to the Coast Guard. The MTSB will review the entire recording from midnight to 6 a.m. and establish a detailed description of the recorded dialogue. The end of the longest article I read in my life. No wonder there was 3 people that wrote it.
And Woo! That's our show, folks.
Man, I ain't never caught article read fatigue, bro.
But
yeah, so, any other final thoughts?
Yeah,
wrap this
so I think we talked about it last show or the show before last.
Yeah.
So either 21 or 20. This is episode 22. And I heard, didn't look into it, that the owner of the company who owned this ship, or the CEO of the company who owned this ship, is none other than Mitch McConnell's sister-in-law, who died when her Tesla backed into a pond in Texas, or a lake in Texas.
Wait, so repeat that again. The Tesla executive who died.
No, not Tesla executive. Mitch McConnell's sister-in-law,
right,
is either the owner of the company who owned this ship, or the CEO of the company who owns this ship.
Where'd you get that from?
It was on this page I follow on YouTube, but look it up right quick. Let's see if that's correct. I think her name was Angela Chow, I believe.
Yeah,
could be wrong, but I believe her name was Angela Chow. CHAO. Yeah, let's see. Shipping CEO Angela Chow. So it says she was a shipping CEO. She was a shipping CEO. She was the CEO of the Foremost Group.
Mm-hmm.
And
Linear by Neuromod.
so I can't. Let's see.
Yeah, man, we're connecting the dots, but you know, what dots? What are the dots, though? That's the thing. We got, that's interesting. It's very interesting.
Okay. So it says that she wasn't. So she wasn't.
Oh, she wasn't. Okay, so
At least that's what the fact check. What is it? What is it? PolitiFact says it's not true.
right. All right, cool. Uncomfy truth. Sometimes not true. All good.
Well, yeah. Also,
Hmm?
PolitiFact is notorious liars. So, I mean, they're different companies, but the founder of so let's see. So, the founder of the company, yeah, her father was sorry. No, we're fine. We're fine. Family donated a lot of money to I think there's a building at Harvard named after their father.
Hmm.
Yeah. The or who is it? Named after their mother, Mulan Chu. So it's called the Ruth Mulan Chu Chow Center in Harvard.
Hmm. Okay.
So it's from Harvard Business School. But yeah. And then there was something else. Never mind. That was it. Okay. Immediate fact check. But a lot of people have said that if you look at the footage of the bridge collapse, looks
Mhm.
very similar to an implosion and not,
Yep.
So there's, the unfortunate thing, even with what we just talked about, and there's nothing wrong with being wrong. We checked it immediately. We looked at whether that was true or not. The issue is that you live in a country or a world, whatever, where you don't know. You can't be sure about why or how things happen to be. You can't take them at face value.
And you
You
can't be
have
sure
to.
just because the leading authority person on the news
Right.
station in the suit just tells you. You have to
Exactly.
be critical. Yeah.
Exactly. So, all right.
All right, that's all I got. Anything else?
So, let me see if I can find. Hey, what's up? There was a post that broke. It was a post that broke down the amount of products that go on that bridge.
Mm-hmm. Put it. You could put it into the chat, the private chat, and I could pull it up. Or you can screen share on your end.
They went through all the. Let's see. I'll find it. And if I can find it, I'll put it up. But we can go to the next thing.
All right, cool. All right, great. So once again, guys, Uncomfy Truths, episode 22. Thanks for tuning in. I've said it like we're saying goodbye. But thanks everybody for tuning in right now. Once again, we're streaming right now on Odyssey, Rumble, and YouTube. So hit that like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. We're gonna pop over to our next article. So this comes from People Magazine. Kate Middleton reveals cancer diagnosis full recap. All right, so see how long this article is. Shit. Let's see how long. Oh, cool. All right. I think I have to be. I think it's going to take us to a paywall. It's pretty short, but I like short. All right. So, Princess of Wales, 42, opened up about her health following her January planned abdominal surgery. Kate Middleton has cancer and is undergoing chemotherapy, a revelation the Princess of Wales shared on Friday in a personal video message released by Kensington Palace. The news comes just months after Princess Kate had undergone a planned abdominal surgery on January 17th. In her new message, she said that at a time of her surgery, it was understood that the issue was non cancerous. Ultimately, the post operative test found cancer had been present. The type of cancer was not revealed in Princess Kate's message, and a Kensington Palace spokesperson says we will not be sharing any further private medical information. Princess has a right to medical privacy, as we all do. Princess Kate, I respect that. Princess Kate assured viewers, I am well and getting stronger every day by focusing on the things that will help me heal in my body, in my mind, body, and spirits. Keep reading for a recap of the Princess of Wales cancer revelation, including how her family has been supporting her during this challenging time. On Friday, March 22nd, uh, Kate Middleton revealed that she had been diagnosed with cancer and undergoing chemotherapy. Uh, Princess of Wales said that the cancer was discovered after her abdominal surgery in January. Kate explained that she and Prince William had been taking time to explain her health issues to their three children, and she was taking time to step back from work to focus on her health and recovery. Many rushed to send words of support to Kate, including the brother-in-law, Prince Harry, and his wife, Meghan Markle, who wished her health and healing. Yeah, backstabber, whatever. Kate, we're going to get into all that. Kate's news makes her the third member of the royal family to publicly reveal that they've been recently diagnosed with cancer. King Charles, oh yeah, King Charles, I forgot he caught it. And Sarah, Duchess of York, had both previously revealed they had been diagnosed with cancer, post COVID jab. So that's my fire starter. um, I got a lot to say. It's a good, short, and sweet article. We can kind of get into what we may or may not think it is, how the family's kind of reacting to it, how Harry and Meghan, how they're kind of in the fold here. They're the pariah. They're the ones, regardless of your thoughts on the royal family, they've done some dirt to get their wealth, but at the same time, like, you got family members doing them that dirty, you never look at them the same. So I think there's that factor too we can discuss a bit. Then of course, obviously, any sort of health issue, you still got to give people grace and want to wish it upon anybody. But just a lot of interesting things going on here that we can kind of uh, break down from more than one angle. So, conspiracy brother, go ahead and give me your initial thoughts, because a lot of angles we can kind of examine here.
I, I I haven't really thought about it at all. I think I don't know. I haven't thought about it at all. I think it's interesting that the dad has got cancer and now she's got cancer. So maybe they just eat some weird stuff. I don't know. I don't know. Um, I don't know because they said she wasn't. Remember, everybody was making a big deal about the pictures and wondering where she's been this whole time and whatever from the surgery or whatever. And I think it's very possible that this is just giving people what they want to give them the distraction they're looking for.
Right.
So if we can feed into your own desire to be distracted by creating a scenario and then allowing you to dictate what we do next, I just, obviously they're not immortal, right? They die. Right. So even if they have great health care, she could still theoretically die or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, it's interesting that the dad, or Charles or whatever, he's got cancer. Now and she's got cancer now.
Right.
Just seems like really bad luck.
Yeah.
And
Seems like it.
almost said a great coincidence. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe, I don't know, living around all that old stuff, eating off all that old dinnerware and cooking in old pots or whatever. Maybe
You
something
think
that
the COVID jab might have something to do with it? Because they were very, like a lot of the elites kind of went along, go get your jab, and lo and
we'll
behold,
see.
since the jab, once again, I'm not saying it was just, it could have been, it was that. We can ask these questions, but, and at the same time, I think it provides like you mentioned, like a distraction. Never let a good
Yeah.
crisis go to waste. So maybe she, in fact, does have cancer. I don't think they go to the length of faking the cancer, but at the same time, it does provide a good narrative. A lot of the sort of the image of the royal family last few years has been pretty tainted, with Harry and Meghan. So this, while it is unfortunate, this could provide some of the sympathy that could make the royal family be a little more, just like with King Charles. So yeah,
Yeah.
I know I'm
Well,
throwing a
see,
lot out there, but just want
no,
to,
I mean, it's possible. It's certainly possible.
it's possible. I'm not saying
I,
this for sure. I'm just
yeah, but
saying,
like for me with the vaccine, like I think a lot of those people didn't really get it. You saw pictures like Joe Biden on TV, whatever, and I
mhm,
just think he got saline. Like I don't think he really got it. You know what
right,
I'm saying? I think the
yeah,
people at the top really didn't get it.
right,
Like we've heard a lot about celebrities dying and stuff, but like there's footage of people. Remember that people that were on stage, they were supposedly getting the vaccine, and the
right.
nurse or whoever was administering it, he just like injected it all out. Like it was the syringe was already the plunger was already compressed, and they never actually put anything into the person. It was
Yeah,
just
Mariah Carey got called out for that.
yeah.
They
So
just,
like I
yeah,
think a lot of these people didn't really get it. They were just trying to confuse. So I mean, like it could be vax related. It could very well be, but I think it could be something else going on, right?
mhm,
Or some other distraction they're trying to keep you from. Could it be their economy in the UK and the globe in general? Could it be, you know, some other nefarious law that they're trying to pass, or some authoritarian control measure they're trying to do that they want to distract people from? So they'll say, "Hey, Kate's been missing for a while. Where is she? What are you doing with her?" Because everybody, they have this kind of weird love-hate relationship with the royal family. So, where is she? What have you done with her? And then
right,
after the groundswell of people concerned with her well-being gets high enough,
mhm,
then they say, "Oh, here she is," and they put her on this weird kind of, "Oh, this is her." And then as that continues to feed into this, where is she? What's going on with her? Why is she around? Then she comes out and says, "Hey, I got cancer." Like, oh, we knew something was up, and so everybody feels like that's like dangling a carrot. Uh, but the
mhm,
the uh the string was always long enough for you to get it, or
right,
it was adjustable, so they always intended for you to get the carrot. They just wanted to make you work for it enough that you felt like you accomplished something in the process. Because like these could all be snake people for all I know, right? They could all
mhm,
very well be like lizard people. They could all,
yep,
for all I know, um, do some kind of weird rituals or whatever, drink blood, drink adrenochrome or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
mhm,
Um, and that could be the reason why she's having any of these issues, or Charles is having any of these issues. I remember when they were talking about his coronation, and they said, there are only 3 King Charleses in the history of the United Kingdom.
mm,
He's the third, and the first 2 met untimely deaths. And I think Charles II got his head cut off. And
damn,
I think he signed whatever that was that gave up. It was like it removed the absolute power of the monarchy in the UK. That was King Charles II before he got his head cut off. So, like, again, does this feed into that narrative? Like, oh yeah, King Charles is an unlucky name. Look, now King Charles III has cancer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So she could have a body double. She could have a clone. You know what I'm saying?
We don't know.
It could be AI. It could be just some computer generated imagery. We have no way to know. And so, I mean, they control the media. As much as we'd like to believe that in the United States we're above control from the British monarchy, they control the media. And so it's very possible that this ain't even her, let alone that she don't have cancer. So, I mean, even if she was to die, and it was attributed to this cancer, we have no way to prove that it actually is her even, like with Jeffrey Epstein, where they said, oh yeah, he's dead or whatever. We don't know. We don't have no way to know. So it's tough. It's tough.
Based. Yeah. Once again, if it's just if it is as it's shown, wishing her well wishes, not wishing death or ill will toward anybody. Hope she has a full recovery. But at the same time, the the British royal family, they got plenty of power, control, and what they can be using this to their advantage one way or another. So I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, but we'll see what developments go on with that. All right, so here's our next article. It doesn't look too long. I'm like paranoid. I want to check and see how long the article is. It's a USA Today. They aren't too bad. It shouldn't be that long. But this is about Dan Schneider. I brought this up because there's been a lot of talk with there's this new. I saw part of it. This new docuseries called "Quiet on Set: The Dark Side of Kids TV." So if you were like a kid growing up in the '90s, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, Disney Channel, or Nickelodeon in this case, it's gonna ruin your childhood in some aspects. Like just part of what was going on. So this don't look too long. Maybe we could read parts together. But yeah, this comes from USA Today. If I could get back to the top of it. I don't know. Sorry, hold on. All right. So who is Dan Schneider? The Nickelodeon Golden Boy accused of abusive behavior in new doc. This comes from Mary Walroth Holdridge at USA Today. So conspiracy brother, I think this is your turn to read, but have you heard anything about this or familiar with that whole thing going on? I know it's a little
I've
bit
heard
more.
about it. I've heard about it. I haven't watched it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're the same age, and I remember watching Kenan and Kel. I remember watching all that.
Yeah.
The Amanda show. I never really thought she was very funny.
Mhm.
That Zoe 101 is kind of after my time of really being invested in Nickelodeon.
Yeah,
I
that
was
was
more of a Cartoon Network person because I like cartoons.
Mhm.
So, I liked Rocco's Modern Life.
Yeah.
Angry Beavers are kind of like two shows that Real Monsters, Rugrats.
Ren
You know what
and
I'm saying? I was more of an
Stimpy.
animation. Right. Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah.
Did like Fairly Odd Parents. I did like that show.
Cat Dog.
Right. Cat Dog, man, some good shows, cartoons. Was never really a fan of the shows, The Real People. All that is good. Kenan and Kel was good. Are You Afraid of the Dark was good.
Yeah. Yep.
But a lot of the other comedy shows, they weren't really funny. They had a very stale sense of humor that never connected with me.
Right.
But I can say that I recall thinking to myself as a late preteen or tween and an early teenager that a lot of these shows with kids, they showed their feet a lot. And the reason why that was significant for me is because I noticed like Disney Channel shows, they never showed kids' feet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it was like stark contrast between the two networks, where with Disney, with Nickelodeon, you would see a lot of like the soles of feet. Like I have a younger sister, 6 years younger than me, so she would watch a lot of shows on Nickelodeon, and I would, maybe I'd sit and watch with her shows that I might not necessarily want to watch myself, but that she'd be interested in. And you notice, like with iCarly, the two female characters, Miranda Cosgrove and Jeanette McCurdy, were barefoot a lot, and the soles of their feet would be on camera. And like I said, with with Disney Channel, you'd have characters on the beach or at the pool, and you never would even see their feet in those situations. And I thought, man, it's got to be somebody on this channel who likes feet. And a common name that you saw was Dan Schneider. He was a producer, executive producer on a lot of these shows. And so it isn't surprising to me. You hear a lot about just Hollywood in general. Corey Feldman talked about the vast pedophilia rings or networks in Hollywood. Isaac Cappy talked about it. He said that Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks were heads of the pedophile network in Hollywood. And he was going to expose them, or he was making videos exposing them. And then he supposedly committed suicide not long after. Some have said that he was ran off the road by a truck. Some say he jumped off a bridge and was witnesses were saying that, they were trying to persuade him not to jump. But, again, when you have these groups of people, you look at Jeffrey Epstein, for example, when you have groups of people like, we haven't really gone a lot into like talking about Pizzagate, but like I was talking to some coworkers about John Legend's wife, Chrissy Teigen, and how she had some really disturbing tweets years ago that were on her Twitter, and about how often she talked about pizza. And if we go to WikiLeaks, you can type in John Podesta, who is currently, I think, the secretary or some kind of head of the clean energy division of the Biden administration. He was either the campaign chair or some type of campaign official for Hillary Clinton in 2016. His emails where he's mentioning pizza and hot dogs and pasta, and just really weird ways, talking about spirit cooking, which is that weird supposedly art.
Yeah, Maria Abramovich, like a mentor to
Jay-Z was doing it.
Yeah,
and a lot of the celebrities were doing it, and it
Hugh
involves
Jackman, Lady Gaga.
They
blood
or fake. It involves blood or fake blood, and I say fake because I don't have a way to verify that it was real, but it looked like it was coagulated. And like these, when the people in the country who control a lot of the laws of what we do and what we say are involved in these behaviors, you have no way really of having any recourse to say otherwise, that any of this stuff is true or false or whatever. Like they say Seth Rich released a lot of this information when he worked for the DNC. And he was supposedly working. When he was murdered, he was shot in the back 2 times. He was supposedly a robbery gone wrong, but when they found him, he had his phone, he had his wallet. Nothing was missing at all. So, I kind of went on a tangent a bit, but even if you look at our thumbnail, Dan Schneider is kind of like a weird hug with Miranda Cosgrove, and she looks uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And Dan Schneider looks really, it looks like something I wouldn't allow my daughters to do with a man when they're underage, when they can't make that decision on their own as adults. And so, look, the price of fame and what people are willing to do for fame or willing to allow their children to do, willing to exploit their children for their own selfish reasons. I'm not at all surprised. I have seen some videos talking about the documentary and, some of the aspects of it, but it's really disgusting. So,
yeah, a lot to unpack. So I'll get into the nitty gritty of the article. All right, so who is Dan Schneider, the Nickelodeon Golden Boy accused of abusive behavior in new doc from Mary Walworth Holdridge at USA Today. Buzz has continued to swirl around several big names in Hollywood since the premiere of the investigation Discovery series, docuseries Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV early this week. Released in 2 parts on Sunday and Monday evening, the tell-all documentary shocked viewers with behind-the-scenes stories of some of Nickelodeon's biggest television shows, revealing the allegedly toxic and abusive environment that was cultivated behind the scenes by adults at the network, including Brian Peck, who served jail time for his sexual abuse of teen star Drake Bell. Showrunner Dan Schneider was one of the primary focuses of the documentary, as both former child stars and adult co-workers recounted tales of alleged racism, sexism, harassment, and verbal abuse at his hands. Described as Nickelodeon's golden boy, Schneider was behind some of the most successful live-action shows in the network's history, a level of success that some of his former co-workers say enabled his bad behavior. What allegedly happened behind the scenes of Nick's most beloved shows and how Schneider was involved. Here's what we know: who was Brian Peck, ex-Nickelodeon coach convicted of lewd acts with minor, back in spotlight. Who is Dan Schneider? Dan Schneider is a television producer, screenwriter, actor, best known for his work in children's television. Schneider and his production company, Schneider's Bakery. That's kind of creepy right there. Bakery, you want to cook cookies because you want to lure children. Are behind
they're
some
doing
of the,
right in front of they're doing it right in front of your face.
Yeah, they throw that in there. Are behind some of Nickelodeon's most well-known shows, including The Amanda Show, Drake and Josh, Zoe 101, iCarly. So I think me and you, Conspiracy Brother, we weren't at all that Amanda Show era. Keenan and Kel, of course. I didn't get into the other ones. That was after us. Schneider dabbled in acting early in his career, landing a few small roles in a recurring spot on the 80s sitcom Head of the Class as Dennis Blunden. He began working as a writer, a producer for Nickelodeon in the 90s, and continued to work with the network until the 2 parted ways in 2018. What was Dan Schneider accused of? So Dan Schneider accepting a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2014, Nickelodeon's Kids' Choice Awards. All right, alleged gender, that picture is not going to age well for everybody on it. Alleged gender discrimination. Schneider was one of the most common subjects of discussion in the documentary, which was inspired by an investigative report by Kate Taylor. Schneider was accused of engaging in unprofessional and inappropriate behaviors in the workplace, one of the most common of which frequently asking female employees to massage his neck while on set. The Amanda Show writers Jenny Kilgan and Christy Stratton accused Schneider of blatant displays of discriminatory behavior, saying he made them share a salary as the only 2 women in the writing room, and often made inappropriate comments and demands to them. They eventually went on to sue the network on gender-based discrimination. The 2 former actors on All That, Brian Hearn and Giovanni Samuels, said they experienced racism on set, alleging they were cast in stereotype roles and treated poorly by the showrunner. Someone said the skin tone should be charcoal. I started getting teary-eyed. Hearn recalls in the docuseries while discussing costuming for a skit in which he played a rapper named Little Fetus. At another point, his mother pointed out the implications of her son, the only black male on the cast show at the time, being cast to play a character that behaved like a drug dealer. Schneider's shows of the era frequently featured only one or two black cast members. In the documentary, he and other writers were accused of tokenizing those characters on his shows. Allegedly inappropriate behavior. Adults who worked behind the scenes at the time, including Kilgan and Stratton, said in the doc that Schneider had a propensity for incorporating too adult humor into his shows, kid shows. They said Schneider acknowledged at multiple points that he found incorporating innuendo into the children's programming to be funny. So that goes to what you talked about, Conspiracy Brother, with the feet. I did watch, I think, 2 out of the 4 episodes. Looking back, very disturbing. Like a lot of remember the Nickelodeon slime, you know? Remember that conspiracy? Yeah. So a lot of that was just slime jokes, like cum shot sort of looking innuendos with squirting mustard, squirting
that makes sense. Yeah, that
in the
makes a lot of
face.
sense.
Yeah, because you look back like, oh, it's just innocent, funny gags, but when they break it down in the show, it's unfortunate. So yeah, a lot of feet, a lot of feet shots, a lot of the cum shot innuendo. It was alleged he pushed for short skirts, bikinis, and costuming that some actors found to not be age appropriate. Scenes ranging from pickles being slid through the walls and through the holes in the wall to Jamie Lynn Spears having gooey substance shot on her face were shown and subject to scrutiny. That's Britney's. Remember Britney Spears' daughter? Little sister was on the show.
Right.
Schneider denies
she
the
got
claim.
messed up too.
Yeah, she got a lot of these kids. A lot of these kids will never recover. Schneider denies the claim. Schneider denies these claims. In a statement, his spokesperson argued, remember, all stories, dialogue, costumes, and makeups were fully approved by the network execs on 2 coasts, a standard and practices group read of, and ultimately approved every script. And programming executives reviewed and approved all episodes. In addition, every day on every set, there were always parents and caregivers and their friends watching filming rehearsals. Schneider was also accused of verbal emotional abuse in the form of screaming, yelling, threats, insults, and other toxic behaviors. He has not been accused of any form of physical abuse, sexual or otherwise. Child stars speaking out. Nickelodeon alleged abuse in Quiet on Set doc. These former child stars have spoken up. All right, what shows did Dan Schneider work on? So once again, Good Burger. Wow. Good Burger was the movie. Remember, Good Burger was the sketch within all that. Keenan and Kel, all that. The Amanda Show, What I Like About You, iCarly, Drake and Josh, Zoe 101, Victorious, Sam and Cat, Henry Danger, Game Shakers. What has Dan Schneider said about it? He addresses the allegations in the statement. He said everything that happened on the shows Dan ran was carefully scrutinized by dozens of involved adults and approved by the network. Had there been any scenes or outfits that were inappropriate in any way, they would have flagged and double blocked by this multi-layered scrutiny. So just doubling down.
See, that's what we talk about though. When you build a consensus, right?
Yep.
You build a consensus, you create this appeal to authority, and then when my eyes see something that conflict with what you're telling me, then you say, well, all these other people agreed, and so it's like the emperor's new clothes.
Yep.
So because this multi-layered network of censors or whoever oversight people said nothing, or even if they said it was okay, you say it's okay now. You say it's okay, right? I get the whole. Obviously, he doesn't want to go to jail, so he doesn't want to admit any liability or anything. But like, bro, that ain't the bar. Whether other potential immoral people determine your actions are also moral, even though they share the same immorality with you doesn't make what you're doing right.
Mm. Good point. Good point. Yep. It's just part of that spell, that social conditioning, what we like to call karmic retribution. We put this stuff out there. If you don't see what's really going on, then hey, you're not responsible for what happens to you or corrupting your children. And to be honest, this might be a controversial take, but I feel like there's something super evil about, you could say once again, child sacrifice. I know we talked about that on the show, but I don't know. Part of me, this is controversial, what I'm about to say, but I think part of me, like, sexually abusing the child or physically abusing, or at least I think sexual abusing and destroying their innocence. In some ways, it sounds controversial. That could be even worse than killing a child. And I'm going to tell you why. Because once again, if you kill a child, still horrible, still wrong, it's still, an atrocity. But there's something about that child losing their innocence, being corrupted, forever traumatized. And now that kid no longer has the innocence, goes through life, end up becoming a drug addict, prostitute, criminal. They're just destroyed. Some kids recover, they go on to talk about it, but there's something in some aspects that could be wholly much more evil when it comes to like sexually corrupting, abusing a child, and what that can kind of do to like mess them up in their next generation. Once again, I'm not saying like, oh, it's better than that, than better that he died than that. But I want to just bring that up because I think a lot of people really don't look at just a lot of the pain and trauma and how that really destroys a life as much as it could killing a kid. So all right. So with that in mind, another part of the statement read, in a career spanning 30 plus years, Dan has worked with thousands of people, many of whom still tell how much they enjoyed or appreciated working on his shows. But he also knows some people did not have a positive experience. He is truly sorry for that. Dan knows he should have done better and feels awful about anyone who saw him at his worst or at his best. So a little more just sort of, you know, double downing, just pivoting blame, gaslighting. Schneider had also released a video response on his YouTube channel on Tuesday following the release of Quiet on the Set. In it, he speaks to Boogie, the actor who played Tebow on iCarly. Maybe we can watch that real quick. Might be interesting. The main thing I would change is how I treat people and everyone. I definitely at times didn't give people the best of me. I didn't show enough patience. I will be cocky and definitely over ambitious, sometimes just straight up rude and obnoxious. And I am sorry that I ever was. All right, so just tells you how to watch it. Yeah, we got a little minute. Let's go ahead and let's go straight to the YouTube link. See what comes up. No, I don't want to subscribe. Okay. But yeah, Conspiracy Brother, any other thoughts before we wrap this topic up? I know it's pretty heavy.
Well, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's just interesting that he'd say, hey, I apologize for being overbearing or whatever. Like, you can't apologize for how people take your bad behavior or your objectionable behavior. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's not an apology. I'm sorry that, you can't handle who I am.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Or how I behaved, you couldn't take it.
Right.
Again, because if you admit wrongdoing, you admit liability, you can be sued. So he has to apologize without admitting any actual wrongdoing, and that's all
Right.
this is BS. He doesn't care. He knew what he was doing was wrong,
Yeah, he
but it
has to
was a
do it.
power
Sorry,
trip.
not sorry.
Right, it was a power trip because he was the what do you call it? The head man in charge, HMIC, and so
Yeah.
you know what I mean? He knew he was untouchable because he was making Nickelodeon a lot of money, or Universal, whoever, Paramount, whoever. And so You know, he behaved accordingly. He behaved untouchably because he was untouchable.
All right. So, all right, here's a clip. Let's see what he has to say. Okay, we're not gonna watch all 19 minutes, but
Hey, it's Boogie. I played T-Bo on Nickelodeon's iCarly. I got a chance to watch the Quiet on Set program, and I reached out to Dan to see if it was something that he'd be willing to discuss. I'm pleased to say that he said yes. Dan, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. I really appreciate you reaching out and giving me the opportunity.
can you hear the audio? Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
hear him
I'll-
fine.
Okay, let's watch maybe the first few minutes. We'll see. You know.
Talk to you about what we saw over the last 2 minutes.
The topics that I'd like to discuss. Is there anything you'd like to start off with?
Absolutely. Watching over the past 2 nights was very difficult. Me facing my past behaviors, some of which are embarrassing and that I regret. And I definitely owe some people a pretty strong apology.
Let's talk about the massages.
Okay.
Watching the content yesterday, that was disturbing.
It was wrong. It was wrong that I ever put anybody in that position. It was the wrong thing to do. I'd never do it today. I'm embarrassed that I did it then. I apologize to anybody that I ever put in that situation. And even additionally, I apologize to the people who were walking around Video Village or wherever they happened, because there were lots of people there who witnessed it who also may have felt uncomfortable. So I owe them an apology as well.
Yeah. Dan, talk to me about the writer's room. From what I saw, not cool.
No, and I don't mean to cut you off, but if I can cut right to the chase, let me just say, no writer should ever feel uncomfortable in any writer's room, ever, period, the end, no excuses. Most TV writers, comedy writers have been in writers' rooms, and they are aware that a lot of times there are inappropriate jokes made and inappropriate topics come up. But the fact that I participated in that, especially when I was leading the room, it embarrasses me. I shouldn't have done it. And I can tell you why it hurts really bad for me. I remember very clearly my early experiences, my first experiences in the entertainment business. I was green, I was scared, I was excited. It meant the world to me that I was getting those opportunities. And I went in and I got lucky because they were great. My first couple of experiences were fantastic. And the fact that I didn't pay that forward to every employee that walked through my door, it hurts my heart because I should have. And I wish I could go back and fix that. In the writer's room, there's no doubt that sometimes those jokes went beyond the pale, and I said things that went too far, or made practical jokes that went too far, and that was wrong. And that was because I was an inexperienced producer. I was immature. Wouldn't happen today, but I'm just really sorry it happened.
Now, we know you've had a lot of success over 2 decades. Thousands of people have worked with you, for you. Let's speak directly to the people who did not have a good experience with you.
Okay, I would like to speak to those people because I hate that anybody worked for me and didn't have a good time. You know me. You've been on my sets. Look, I've had some employees that have worked for me for 10 years, some more than 20 years, who would work with me again. But not everybody. There's still a significant number that didn't have a great time working for me. So my batting average isn't nearly high enough in that area. And the way they wouldn't get the best of me is that I would let the pressure of doing 40 or even more episodes per year, I would let that pressure get to me, which a good boss should never, ever do.
Were there specific things that you were doing?
Sure, I would snap at people sometimes. Mm-hmm. I would be snarky when I could have given them a nicer answer. I would not give people the time that they needed. I would be in too big a hurry to get on to the next thing I had to do. And watching that show, it made me, there were so many times I wanted to pick up a phone and call some of those people and say, I'm so sorry, and let's talk about it. And I wish you'd had a better time, and I wish I could have shown you a better experience.
Yeah. Now, you've written hundreds of episodes.
All right, I wanted to just pause it there. So my initial thoughts, and we don't have to watch the whole thing, but Conspiracy Brothers can give you your thoughts too. I just think overall, once again, They did mention I haven't watched though. I've only watched 2 out of the 4 episodes so far, and then from what the article reconfirmed, there weren't any there weren't any children that actually came forward and said yes, he sexually abused me. But yeah, it was still rough. Just the level of like innuendo, the bad workplace jokes, the just the way he did treat the 2 female writers, just kind of pitting them against each other, and then basically making them split a salary that was meant for one writer into 2, and then just finding ways. You see a lot of this in corporate. The corporate politics of trying to push people out, and so I get it because there always will be that sort of locker room politics, boys club aspect to it. So I would say overall, once again, at the same time, he's just coming out of this now for damage control. Like, I get if you didn't really sexually abuse any kids, but at the same time, you did do this behavior. It's sort of the two, two, so, 2 minutes too late. Oh, Quiet on the Set just came out. I got to run damage control. At the same time, I know the environments today, you can't get away with anything like that in the 90s or 2000s. You can't get away with that today. And I know there's people that do have thin skin. So I'm not making excuses for him. I still think, once again, what he did in that environment he created, he should answer to. The fact that he's just coming out and saying all these things now that the dirty laundry's out, that don't look good on you either, bro. You're kind of just trying to placate and try and just say what you got to say, like you said, conspiracy brother. Say enough to where you can't really get sued. You say it without really saying it. So that's sort of my thoughts. Once again, the guy didn't, from what we know, from what people claim, he wasn't part of actually abusing or sexually abusing the kids. But it still ain't a good look, bro. It's still you're coming out trying to run damage control on it, and we know you at least had some things going on set which wasn't appropriate. But I'm not, that's my thoughts, conspiracy brother.
Yeah, so I mean, when you listen to it, this is obviously because he's agreed to have this conversation. This is something that him and the interviewer have talked about. They must be on good terms, or
Right.
the interviewer is well paid. You know what I'm saying? But there's a difference in saying, hey, man, I was a really tough boss. I demanded a lot out of my employees, and I expected your work to be done, and maybe I had some unrealistic deadlines and whatever.
Yeah, that's
But
base.
like,
Yeah.
that ain't what he's saying.
Right.
I made some inappropriate jokes, and I was new, and I was excited, and I was in over my head. Like, what are you talking about? You're an adult. This is just my personal, it's me. I'm not necessarily recommending anybody take this point of view, but like, I barely talk at work. I barely talk at work. So, because I understand that there is a potential for people to get offended by something that I say, whether I think it is offensive or not. So the easiest way for me not to even have to deal with that is I just don't talk to people. It doesn't necessarily make my day longer. It doesn't necessarily make my life harder, any of that. I just don't talk. You know what I'm saying? That's how I try to handle it, so that I'm not in a situation where 10, 15 years later, somebody can come and say, hey, man, Conspiracy Brother was doing some inappropriate stuff. That's just not who I am. I try. So, but also I hold people at my job to the standard that I hold myself at work as it pertains to work. So if we're doing our jobs, I expect us all to work as by the book as we can, to fulfill whatever our obligations are as employees. But, Um, I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I'm not trying to create a situation at my job that makes my coworkers or anybody uncomfortable.
Mhm.
You know, there's just a basic awareness. And so again, you know, because he felt or knew that he was untouchable to Nickelodeon or
Right.
Viacom or whoever, he behaved in a way that is apparently despicable, although apparently not illegal. You know what I'm saying? And now you want to come back because uh, people have complaints and you know this isn't just all gone away, and try to behave as though you made a few lapses in judgment. Again, we all do make mistakes, and nobody is above. Nobody should be above forgiveness. But to create this situation, or at least to portray the situation as just a simple lapse in judgment, I would never think it was appropriate to demand a massage from a subordinate at work.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I don't think it's reasonable to say, oh, it was a different time and we just didn't. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
that's weird. That's a weird framing. And although he hasn't said that, I feel like it's an insinuation
Yeah.
that, I don't accept.
Spot on. Spot on. Spot on. All right, y'all. So moving forward, once again, this is Uncomfy Truths. We got one more topic we got to get to that's been all over the place, and we got to chop it up here. Uh, Coming from Dan Schneider, Nickelodeon, to this next gentleman. Not bad of a segue, but gotta talk about Diddy. Gotta talk about Diddy, unfortunately. Um, and I tweeted or Truth Social this a while ago, like Surviving Diddy, Lifetime series coming soon. You know, but at the same time, there is a political sort of Jeff Epstein vibe to this, as far as who's Diddy involved with, what dirt does he have. Obviously, he's got plenty of mud on him, but guess what? He got mud on other people. So we're gonna break this down. Obviously, we don't need to go into a whole. There'll probably be a bit of a recap on everything Diddy's accused of or everything's going on. But I think everybody will respect the audience is at least well read enough to at least know, be updated on everything. Most of what's going on with Diddy in his past of shenanigans. So this comes from the New York Post. And actually, yeah, conspiracy brother, you can read this last one, and we can kind of chop it up. It's a lot to unpack here. Or any thoughts you want to give on Diddy before we hop into the article?
Well, I've heard people say that the bridge collapse was supposed to be a distraction from this story. And I
God.
I
Oh no.
think people have an overestimation of the importance that Diddy plays in the grand scheme of global or national politics. Um,
Yeah,
I think, and this is not
right.
at all an attempt to try to justify whatever he's accused of or whatever he may have done or facilitated or whatever, but it is possible that he is bad and that he has done some things that are bad, and simultaneously that he is just the tip of the
Mhm.
iceberg. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to be the ringleader.
Mhm.
He can just be the fall guy. Um, because, like I said, earlier, you can look at the flight logs for Jeffrey Epstein's plane, and there are a lot of people who are on that plane. A lot of people. A lot. Um, a lot of movers and shakers. Um, I think Barack Obama was on the plane. I know Bill Clinton was on the plane. Hillary Clinton was on the plane. If you look at the Jeffrey Epstein's flight logs, Alan Dershowitz was on the plane. Bill Gates was on the plane. And so you just have a lot of movers and shakers. And when I say movers and shakers, I feel like, and now that I've said it, it's probably just a bit of an understatement. You have people who fundamentally influence the direction of our country, or who have an impact, substantial, and you know, like the impact is almost indescribable. Like they're they're the modern day equivalent of a Rockefeller or Vanderbilt or Carnegie hanging out with this guy. And so, you know, they don't just control the levels of power, like in a large part they have, modified them, upgraded them, renovated them, and they own them, in the modern era. And so, I mean, Diddy's name wasn't on that list, which doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't have any interactions together. But this may be a distraction from something else, right? This and the bridge may be the distraction from, another more substantial situation that we are not aware of just yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be that story, and the bridge is the cover up for that. But it could be that they're both cover ups for something else that we're, just like in the Princess Kate, like I said, maybe, maybe this is something even worse than we can imagine at this point. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's get into the article. Do you mind reading this last
Sure.
one?
Fed set to widen Diddy's sex probe over claims rapper boasted about shooting people, bribing jurors, and using J-Lo as a gun mule. This is New York Post. Almost 25 years ago, just after 2:30 a.m., a cold winter night, the NYPD detectives were called. Three NYPD detectives were called to the Midtown North. What does it say? I can't see. Can you zoom in just a bit? North Precinct. I think that's it.
All right, I'm about to zoom in. Hold on.
Let's see. Is it frozen?
How's that?
So scroll up just a bit. Okay. Rap impresario Sean Combs, then known as Puffy, his girlfriend Jennifer Lopez, his bodyguard Anthony Wolf Jones, and rapper Jamal Shine Barrow or had been arrested following a shooting inside a Times Square club that wounded 3 bystanders. The cops found Lopez, then 30, cuffed in, quote, the cage, end quote. Combs was also in the station house on West 54th Street. His plans for a spectacular celebration of the new millennium a few days later temporarily on hold. It's funny that she was 30 and, 25 years ago, she seems so old, and now I'm older than 30, and she was so young and stupid. You can go down more. That's just a picture. It's just a description of the pictures.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah. Now the events of that night and the sensational trial which followed in early 2001 are back in the spotlight. Look at that. Let's see. Is that the most? Okay. 2 law enforcement sources told the Post that the infamous shooting and the trial could possibly be reinvestigated as part of a sweeping federal probe into Combs, now 54, and called Diddy, whose past includes more than one mysterious shooting. On Monday, Homeland Security agents swarmed Combs' home in Los Angeles and Miami in raids, which law enforcement sources told the Post were prompted by sex trafficking allegations. Quote, they got eyes on him in Miami, and the feds are talking to witness after witness, end quote. New York criminal defense attorney Michael DiCiaro, who is familiar with the case, told the Post, quote, they're corroborating everything they can, but everything past and present is on the table with Mr. Diddy right now, end quote. The federal agents stormed Diddy's homes 1 month after Rodney, quote, Little Rod Jones filed an explosive lawsuit claiming the music mogul repeatedly sexually assaulted him from September 2022 to November 2023. While Jones was a producer and videographer for the billionaire, Jones compared Combs to Jeffrey Epstein and accused the mogul of groping his genitals, grooming him into having sex, and forcing him to procure sex workers, strippers, and drugs. His suit came less than 3 months after Diddy settled an explosive lawsuit alleging violence filed by his former girlfriend, R&B singer Cassie. 1 second. Alleged that Diddy ran an Epstein-like operation involving sex assault, human trafficking, and blackmail with hidden cameras that captured high-profile names in entertainment, politics, and sports in homosexual acts and other compromising positions. That's a compromising position for sure. That's just the description.
All coming back.
Jones alleged in his suit that Diddy was violent, threatened to, quote, eat, end quote, his face. This is really weird written too. Threatened to, quote, to eat, end quote. Threatened to, quote, to eat. You know, and the New York Post is like the oldest continually operating publication in America.
What's up with these journalists can't write? What is?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's founded by Alexander Hamilton. It's just so weird. You know, we're just doing this on, you know, so YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey. Jeez. His face, brandished guns, and most pointedly was often, quote, bragging about bribing witnesses and jurors in the criminal case concerning the 1999 NYC nightclub shooting with Shine, end quote. But Diddy, his bodyguard Anthony Jones, and Shine Barrow endured a 7-week trial in February and March 2001, which ended with Diddy and Jones walking free, and Barrow, then 21, being convicted on assault and gun possession, sentenced to 10 years in prison. Mystery still surrounds the club New York shooting, especially for former detective Parker, who left the so-called, quote, hip-hop cop, end quote, squad at the NYPD and is now into private investigator. Is now a into private investigator? What is going on here?
Man,
Now
can y'all at least get some AI spell check? God damn, we got
man,
AI now. Y'all can't even
use Grammarly at least.
Is
Now
now
a into now a into private.
Wow, what y'all doing, New York Post?
Man,
What y'all
man,
doing?
oh man, they need tech support.
Yeah. Oh, that didn't age well. All right. Wow, free Puffy Mine. Damn, I missed the 90s, 2000s, bro.
People are weird. People are weird. Diddy has been dogged for years by rumors that he made Shine, now known as Moses Michael Levi Barrow, and who was the opposition leader of the House of Representatives in Belize, take the fall for the incident. I was going to say that he's like a Jewish guy now. He wears the
hella reform.
Orthodox Jewish clothing. He was in Israel for a very long time. His father was the prime minister of Belize, I believe, or something like that. Shine. So, quote, the story was that Puff was flossing, which is what they call someone on the street who's throwing money around and acting like a big shot, end quote. Parker said, quote, Scar felt disrespected because he felt he was as important as Puff, and words were exchanged, and then bullets started flying, end quote. Man, those early 2000 suits.
Yeah, I get a shot at New York Post though. They went back to the archive and they got a lot of images from that era to really bring us back to those times. I remember, only being in middle school, but remember the '99 shooting and the trial, and all the little sort of event moments of through Diddy's timeline, like him having that mohawk. 2004 running the New York Marathon and the making the band, and there's a lot of those little era moments in hip hop, But yeah. Anyway,
shots were fired, and Lopez and Diddy fled the club after the shooting in the Lincoln Navigator. Diddy's driver Wardell Fedderson later said he blew past several red lights as they careened down 43rd and onto 8th Avenue, weaving past two police cars. Quote, Shine busted off in the air, end quote. Fenderson quoted Lopez as saying before cops pulled them over. Former NYPD detective Derek Parker told the Post how in the precinct, quote, her mother was yelling at J-Lo in Spanish and she was really mad at Jennifer. I heard her say, I told you not to get involved with him, end quote. Lopez was released from custody without being charged after 14 hours in jail. Her spokeswoman declined to comment to the Post, but sources in her camp made it clear she was never charged in 1999. Who's this guy? Oh, he was. I was gonna say he looks like some kind of pansexual, gender fluid, something. And then this is the guy that claims Puffy groomed him. So
he's like a Pan-African gender fluid. You got both of those going on.
Yeah. I guess he groomed him then. I guess he was groomed as a grown man. He was groomed to, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I mean, I guess you can be groomed as an adult, but I just feel like
grown man.
Yeah, I just feel like after you become an adult, man, you gotta kind of like
right
accept your role in some of this.
Yeah, grown and groomed.
Adult. Obviously,
we're not condoning or making fun of grooming. We're just saying,
No, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, it's one of those situations where
he was a grown man then, basically.
Yeah, it's like one of those situations where if you actively participate in the whole thing, it's because you want the outcome or you perceive that the outcome, like the Bill Cosby situation. A lot of those women, or let's take him out of it. Let's look at Harvey Weinstein or the whole idea of the casting couch. A lot of women, a lot of people historically have done the whole casting couch thing in Hollywood, right? It's not like some esoteric concept. I mean, it's fairly well known. But like, you do it because you think that it'll help you to get to where you want to be in life. And so, is it wrong or exploitative? Yeah, 100%. But if that's the trade-off you make with the hope that you can, have a better life, uh, do you then get to complain about it or present yourself as a victim? I don't know. I'm not saying that you don't. I don't know, but that's just a thought about this whole situation with this grown man saying he was groomed. Natanya Rubin, who was one of 3 victims in the club shooting, has long insisted that Combs shot her in the face. Quote, I literally watched them pull out the guns. I had a clear point of view. I mean, for God's sake, I got shot in my nose. End quote, Rubin said during an appearance on News Nation's Elizabeth Vargas Reports Thursday. Quote, I watched everything occur and have described it vehemently to all parties involved. I have 9 bullet fragments remaining in my face. End quote.
Yeah.
Jones, in his lawsuit, claims that Diddy bragged about committing the shooting and bribing witnesses and jurors to secure his acquittal. Quote, Mr. Combs shared that he was responsible for the shooting in the nightclub in New York, end quote, Jones alleged. That's hearsay. I don't know if that'll count in the court. He also alleged that Diddy bragged about using Lopez to smuggle the gun into the club. Quote, he shared that artist and Mr. Combs' girlfriend at the time, Jennifer Lopez, a.k.a. J-Lo, carried the gun into the club for him and passed him the gun after he got into an altercation with another individual, end quote. Jones alleges.
I believe that.
It's certainly possible, but,
The Diddy sons.
Diddy, through attorneys, has denied Jones's allegations. His attorney called the federal raids a, quote, witch hunt, end quote, and slammed the, quote, military level force, end quote, used. Diddy was backed this week by Glenn Beck, who was working security at the club that night. Oh, different Glenn Beck. I was about to say, what? Glenn Beck from The Blaze?
Yeah.
Glenn Beck from Fox News is back in Diddy?
Whoa.
What?
No, that can't be the. Wait.
It's
Diddy
not. It's
back?
not.
No, you got an extra in, Glenn Beck.
Right. Glenn Beck, who was but you can't tell with the New York Post. Maybe they forgot.
No, yeah, they may have took that, left that in off because they forgot. I mean, they don't. They can't spell for shit.
See, it says who was working security at the club that night, and is now a martial arts expert who works with Deadly Art of Survival magazine. Beck testified at the 2001 trial, but told the Post that it appeared the prosecution was hell-bent on nailing Diddy and therefore did not ask him about Barrow, a.k.a. Shine. He called Jones's claims, quote, bullshit, end quote, and said, quote, we knew Scar. We knew Shine. He was a wild kid from Brooklyn, end quote. Brooklyn believes.
Wow. Damn.
It was quite a party.
Who took these photos? What year was this? Who took these photos?
Maybe investigators.
Yeah.
Beck said that that just as the fight was brewing between Diddy and Scar, Shine ran out of the club and returned a few minutes later without being searched by security. Quote, that's when the shooting began, end quote. He said, quote, then right after we heard shots ring out, Shine ran out the side door of the club that was attached to a hotel. See, there's no end quote here. But then there's a quote. He came flying out the doors and was immediately arrested by 2 cops who were outside and had heard the shots inside, end quote. Barrow admitted at trial that he pulled out a gun and fired during the fracas, and so far has not accused Diddy of making him take the fall for him. So
Fahim Muhammad, Diddy's chief of security, was a mastermind fixer with connections at the LAPD. Okay, all right. Forgot who he was. All right.
The Post was unable to reach Barrow in his native Belize. Beck also disputed that Lopez could have been used as a gun mule and said, quote, I remember how well she was dressed that night, and she's very slim. She's not going to be hiding a gun in that outfit, end quote. But the 1999 shooting is not the only one likely to be re-examined by federal investigators. Jones also alleged that Diddy lied about his and his son Justin Combs' role in the 2022 shooting at the Chalice recording studio in Los Angeles, in which a friend of Justin, known only as G, was hit twice. Let's see. Jones claims that he was present at the Chalice shooting, which he said occurred at a recording, quote, camp, end quote, in the studio where Diddy, Justin, and G got into a, quote, heated conversation, end quote, then moved into a restroom where shots rang out. Photos in Jones's lawsuit show what purportedly was the bloody aftermath of the shooting in the bathroom. Jones said he stepped in to help G, who was bleeding out, and took him outside to an ambulance. Quote, Mr. Combs gave strict instructions to inform the police that he had nothing to do with the shooting, end quote, Jones alleged. Quote, he also forced Mr. Jones to lie to the police by telling them that G was shot standing outside the studio by a drive-by assailant, end quote. That's a baggy suit. That
baggy suit, man. Yeah, that's
suit.
the
Maybe
90s,
that's a
bro.
coat. Yeah, it's still baggy. Look how baggy his pants are. Sheesh.
Yeah, it's like that fucking. That's that Candyman coat.
Yeah,
to gut
and they're
somebody.
going to the same place. He's wearing a turtleneck. Looks like, cashmere or something. Coat.
Candyman.
And she's got on no
Candyman.
clothes. She's got on no clothes.
Candyman. Candyman. I say it 5 times, right?
Man. The LAPD did not return numerous calls from the Post, but a police spokesman said or told the NBC News that 3 people were arrested 2 months later and accused of a series of robberies throughout LA, including the shooting of G. Police said G had told them he was shot in a struggle with attempted robbers. Jones also alleged that Diddy's head of security, Fahim Muhammad, who was once the head of security for Michael Jackson, is a powerful fixer with connections in the LAPD who Jones claimed, quote, had the power to make people and problems disappear, quote. Oh, geez. Management at Chalice, where Diddy has recorded multiple times, declined to comment Friday. Diddy, however, is not without other defenders. LA rapper Glasses Malone, a former Crip who grew up in South Central LA and who has been around Diddy on multiple occasions, told the Post, quote, I found Jones' lawsuit pretty disingenuous. This guy calls himself a Christian, but yet let himself be forced into getting strippers and cocaine for puff, end quote. Malone, who also uses the same network of LA recording studios like Chalice and others, said the only thing that concerned him in the lawsuit was the shooting involving G. Quote, if true, that's the only thing in the lawsuit that shows criminal intent to me, end quote, Malone said, quote, and we're talking about this, but nobody knows who this G guy is or where he is. That's the mystery to me.
All right. But Jason Whitlock, author and host of Fearless Podcast, he's a conservative pundit on Blaze TV, opined to the Post, there's an avalanche of truth coming, as well as a lot of distortions and opportunists coming. Diddy could just get buried by that avalanche. So, I know we're about Diddy out this week, but I'll give my initial thoughts. I think, like you mentioned, Conspiracy Brother, I think he is part of a distraction of things that are coming. I mean, whether or not he's tied to the bridge and all that, whatnot, that may be distraction too, or false flag event. But I think with the thing with Diddy, bro, is the fact that I think there's an underlying root of hip hop that we need to address that we haven't addressed in a while. As far as like, I get it. It's what it kind of does to a lot of the black men that listen to it, and you know how it's like we do let it. A lot of men fall victim to it as far as trying to live and promote this promiscuous lifestyle with women and drugs and cars and living a gangster life, and without, instead of just let it be entertainment. If we were to kind of just how kind of white folks, white boys who listen to hip hop music and they go to the concerts and they say the N word when there's no black people around, they don't up and try and go live a life, you know. But what they end up doing, they keep going to school, they go work a job or whatever it is and whatnot, and they don't instill the life of what the music is. And the underlying issue with Diddy, and once again, like him and a lot of other people in hip hop, is that unfortunately for us, just with kind of like our history of being marginalized in disadvantaged situations, unfortunately the only escape for a lot of black men in that situation is to try and like emulate the lifestyle if they're not getting the parenting at home, if they're not getting the father figures or whatnot at home. So Diddy, is just sort of, he came out of the 90s and just saw the need for a market, fill a need in the market, and just through the commercial outbreak capitalism of hip hop, Diddy is just a Diddy is just a living embodiment of it. So can you really blame the guy? Once again, like, he's got his crazy lifestyle, he got all these things, which I'm convinced a lot of these things he did do. But at the same time, who was backing him? Who was part of that machine helping him construct this? Or once again, was he a puppet? And he was able to once again put people in compromising positions and do this sort of Epstein blackmail level stuff. These are things that all need to be determined and kind of having that uncomfortable conversation. So yeah, do I think Diddy needs to get some accountability for some of these crimes, some of these, obviously these are allegations and a lot of, lawsuits coming at him. I think a lot of that is just towards him, but we got to look at, once again, what is this distracting us from, and who benefits from Diddy's downfall, and who is now able to scurry back into the shadows because all the heat's on Diddy. And a lot of it is his own making. A lot of it he has to take responsibility for. But once again, he benefited and he was the benefactor for years of this lifestyle that once again ruined a lot of people in the black community. So he has to answer to some of that, the systemic damage long term, him and the community as a whole. But we got to think about who politically benefits and who is taking advantage of this downfall of Diddy from the top. So that's my fire starter. That's why I wanted to that's what I feel like we're going to continue to have the conversation, because it's more than we can do at the end of one show. But that's my initial thoughts. But we can, dive a little deeper. But Conspiracy Brother, you go ahead.
Okay, so fun fact, maybe some listeners don't know, but Diddy's father was friends with Frank Lucas.
Yep, that's one.
The American gangster Frank Lucas, who was a drug runner for the CIA. I think we all kind of know that, right? We understand that now, that you're not putting heroin inside of caskets or body bags or bodies with soldiers returning from Vietnam without having some type of relationship with somebody in a position to either make sure that those bodies aren't searched, or that when they get back they're not searched, or you know what I'm saying? So we do understand that he's not some kind of mastermind, but he was chosen. And so Diddy's father was shot. From what I remember, Frank Lucas was supposed to be killed or shot, but Diddy's father was shot and killed when he was very young. And so there's a potential. I mean, when you let's look at the history of hip hop, right? Because you're talking about hip hop and some of the destructive elements of hip hop. We know that the government, the CIA, has funded or elevated some of the more violent and negative groups and aspects of rap or hip hop or whatever you want to call it. A lot of the gangster rap and stuff like that. When you look at the drugs, how they were imported into this country from South America, cocaine, the guns. I've done a show about it before on another channel. Maybe we can do one here. I've still got a lot of the information. Again, like I talked about Gary Webb and the I think his articles were published under the name Dark Water or Dark. They made a movie about it. But anyway, he investigated, the CIA bringing in guns and drugs into the United States for like Nicaragua to help the U.S. fund. What was his name? Not Noriega. Was it Noriega? When the whole Oliver North thing, Iran, Contra, that whole situation. But what ends up happening with a lot of these people is they're picked, right? They don't necessarily possess some great skill, but they may benefit or be the beneficiaries of a certain period in time when a technology is new or novel, and so they get to benefit from it from that perspective, or they just get chosen. They get allowed. They're allowed to become the face of a new form of art or new technology or whatever, and they're allowed to excel behind it. And so I think it is almost undeniable that he is certainly a puppet of the establishment. I mean, for at least since Obama ran for president, he had that whole vote or die initiative.
Yep.
Where he was going out to try to get young people to go and vote. I mean, so he's very, he's very friendly with the Democratic Party. So either they're sacrificing one of their own in order to throw the masses off of the trail of something more significant, coming later or happening somewhere in the background that we're not aware of, or he really is just some sex trafficker who has really been doing all this right in front of our noses all this time. Like I said, you can look up the Jeffrey Epstein flight log to see who's been on his planes and how none of these people have been questioned, as far as I know. Ghislaine Maxwell has access to Jeffrey Epstein's client list, so people who used his services, which is, he's known to have been a sex trafficker and a trafficker of minors. And, nobody's released that yet. So, where does this all lead to? What is the potential trick that they're trying to pull on all of us? Who knows? I'm still trying to figure it out myself, but I'll definitely share it if I get any updates.
Whew, it's based. All right, so yeah, a lot more updates with Diddy. Very complicated history and past. Love-hate relationship as far as they put out some hits. Bad Boy put out some hits in the 90s, 2000, So there's kind of like the R. Kelly effect. There's some, there's this dark history here. but at the same time, like, damn, there was a few good hits there. But obviously behind that, this music industry, which we know is cutthroat, satanic, there is a lot that a lot of uncomfortable truths. Once again, very fitting for our show that we have to kind of realize, and it just goes back to what Cat Williams said. Once again, I don't believe or agree with everything he says, but Cat Williams said 2024 is going to be the year of truth, and here we are. A lot of revelations been going on this year. So what else is next? What's going to be what's going to be in the news next week? And what can we do to see past, peel back the surface level, behind the surface level headline? Who would benefit from this and why? And what is this distracting us from? So that's the thing we got to keep asking ourselves, regardless how we feel about Diddy and the hip hop, what he's done for the industry, good and bad, and his effect on the community, good and bad. We got to look at all aspects of it. So that's all I got. Conspiracy brother, any final thoughts before we wrap up here? It's been a good show. Conspiracy brother, you there?
Oh yeah, sorry, I had my mic muted. I was saying no, I'm not going to expand more than what you said. I think you summed up a lot of good points just about us needing to revisit some of these ideas and look deeper into some of these potentialities. I think some of these stories are some things we'll have to look into and expand on. Maybe we'll read Behold the Pale Horse and discuss it on the channel and look at some of the more conspiratorial things, looking at like WikiLeaks and the whole Pizzagate situation and the Jeffrey Epstein situation. I know Whitney Webb has done a lot of information about it. She's produced a lot, researched a lot.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's a wealth of information out there just to look into some of these people in Hollywood. Isaac Cappy, his death, the accusations he made, Corey Feldman, his death. I think it was Corey Feldman. Accusations he made, and which one is it? Aaron Carter, Nick Carter, the younger one.
Yeah, the younger brother died.
Right, and he was, he said that there were a lot of pedophiles and stuff in Hollywood, and his family wanted him to accuse Michael Jackson of being a pedophile against him, and he said he wouldn't do it, and Corey Feldman said the same thing, and Macaulay Culkin said Michael Jackson never touched him either, and so when you're useful to them, you're untouchable. But the second you outlive your usefulness, they want to get rid of you as quickly as possible. So we'll look into all that, as the show goes on. This is only episode 22, so we hopefully have a long time to expand on some of these ideas. But yeah, I think that's it for me. Keep thirsting for the truth.
Yep, and we'll be back in 2 weeks as long as the this April 8th solar eclipse doesn't end up being a grid down scenario.
Right, the end of it all.
They blame as a solar flare. I'm hunkering down just in case on Monday the 8th. But as long as there's at least don't shut the power down on us and make it, it's a solar flare. As long as that shit don't pop off, we should be back 2 weeks from now doing our thing. So everybody, great show. Thanks for tuning in on Comfy Truths on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble. And we will see you guys next time. Stay awake, not woke. Stay awake, my people.
Peace.